hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's a not uncommon disorder that we see in our echo labs. Today, let's go over the 5 things you need to do to get a better echo in these patients. First, the types of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Is it the usual sigmoid type of septum that is most common? Or is it the diffuse type of HCM that involves the entire ventricle and sometimes even the right ventricle as well? Or apical HCM, in which the mid to distal segments of the left ventricle are involved, and of course we have mid-wall hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and reverse curvature. Second, describe the distribution of hypertrophy and the maximal wall thickness. Why is that important? First, if you're planning surgery, you need to describe to the surgeon where the segments are as they're hypertrophied, in this case diffuse, and how far that hypertrophy extends. In addition, you need to describe the maximal wall thickness. If it's more than 30 millimeters, then that's an increased risk of sudden cardiac death. Although remember that actual increase is really a gradient. It starts less than that and continues below. If the wall thickness is more than 2.8 centimeters, then that means the chance of alcohol septal ablation being successful is less. Third, describe the hemodynamic effects. Using color Doppler and continuous wave Doppler, evaluate the gradients and measure your maximal LVOT gradient from multiple planes. Is the gradient more than 30 millimeters of rest? In this case, it's 120. If the gradient is less than 30 millimeters at rest, then do provocation, such as Valsalva in the supine, sitting up and standing position. You can use amyl nitrite. You can use postprandial gradients, and you can use exercise stress echo. Remember that 1/3 of patients will have hypertrophic obstruction without provocation, 1/3 will have a provocal gradient, and 1/3 will have non-obstructive HCM. Report only the peak gradient. We don't need to see the mean gradient, that's not relevant, and rule out any other causes of LVOT obstruction, including subaortic membrane. Fourth, describe the mitral valve and the mitral valve apparatus. Remember that you should be seeing posteriorly directed mitral regurgitation. If you see central or anteriorly directed, think of some other cause. Describe whether systolic anterior motion or SAM of the mitral valve is present. You can see that very easily in this case. Using M mode, you can also describe the severity of the SAM. If the distance from the septum to the anterior mitral leaflet is less than 10 millimeters, that is considered significant. Or if the time of contact of the anterior mitral leaflet with the septum is more than 30% of systole, that's also significant. In some patients, you might even see fibrotic changes of the septum due to leaflet coaptation or leaflet contact. Finally, other findings. Describe the LV size and systolic function. Because the LV cavity is so small, you should get an increased ejection fraction. If you find that the LV cavity is dilated or LV systolic function is less than 65%, that generally indicates a worse prognosis for these patients. Be sure to discuss diastology, LV mass index, LA size, and finally, tissue Doppler and strain. Let's recap what we've just learned. First, the type of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Second, the distribution and the maximum wall extent. Third, the hemodynamic effects and how did you achieve those gradients. Fourth, the mitral valve apparatus, and any SAM. Finally, any other findings including LV size, systolic function, diastology, mass, tissue Doppler, and strain.